this is the latest video we've received from an overnight airstrike out in Khan Younis, Gaza. We're learning from the Associated Press, Israel's military hit the largest hospital in Southern Gaza Sunday night, killing 2 people, wounding others, and causing a large fire. The territory's health ministry confirming this news to the Associated Press. The strike hit the surgical building of Nasser Hospital in the city of Khan Younis days after the facility was overwhelmed with dead and wounded when Israel resumed the war in Gaza last week with a surprise wave of airstrikes. We are learning those killed in Sunday night strike included a 16-year-old boy who underwent surgery 2 days ago. Also killed was a member of Hamas's political bureau who was being treated at the hospital. Hamas confirming that information in a statement. A lot to discuss for this breaking news, so we want to bring into the conversation distinguished lecturer in Homeland and National Security, also a terrorism expert, Ken Gray. He is an expert with the University of New Haven. Ken, good morning. A lot to discuss on this breaking news. Thank you so much for being here.
There's a lot going on once again throughout the Gaza Strip.
Absolutely. So let's first talk about the back and forth. Obviously, the ceasefire broken at this time between Hamas and Israel. We are looking at this Sunday night strike overnight into U.S. Early morning Monday hours. So many questions, but let's just start with the facts. What do we know at this time as relates to the strike? Why is Israel and Israeli Defense Forces saying they chose to do this to a hospital?
So the Nasser Hospital has been a center of activity for Hamas throughout this conflict there in the Gaza Strip. And so the IDF returned to that area, and they assassinated the alternate Hamas prime minister in this raid. So once again, the hospital is being used for things other than being a hospital. The IDF and airstrikes have also taken out a number of other Hamas leadership positions, to include the airstrike killed the political leader Salah al-Bardawil in Khan Younis. Also, the deputy commander of the Gaza Brigade and the commander of Hamas's Sajaya battalion was also killed with IDF activity. And so the IDF and the airstrikes are being relatively surgical. They are targeting high leadership positions in Hamas, trying to force Hamas to comply with the direction to release all the remaining hostages.
Ken, thank you so much for that detailed breakdown. A lot of unanswered questions this morning, and I think one thing a lot of the viewers are looking at is that this safe haven, a hospital, one of the largest in the southern area of Gaza, was housing a Hamas terrorist, and that terrorist was receiving treatment. When we look at the feeds, we see how this area is always busy, people needing treatment for malnourishment and other things like that. Do you think this further shows how from the very beginning, Israel was saying that they are concerned about UNRWA, other organizations that are supposed to be aiding the people, actually housing these Hamas militants and helping them?
Not only that, but also the fact that the hospital, which is a center of the civic activity, a place where people are brought to when they are injured or sick, and instead Hamas has been using that as a shield, trying to use it to keep the IDF and to try to keep airstrikes from hitting at their location. You'll recall that there was a search through Nasser Hospital, not only for Hamas members back 8 months ago, but also looking for tunnel entrances with the belief that Hamas may have actual centers for their communications and centers for their direction, their actual headquarters located underneath Nasser Hospital. They did a search throughout the hospital and routed out a number of Hamas members there. They did find indication of some weapons inside Nasser Hospital, but I don't think they found what they thought they were going to find. That is a entrance into a command center. That did not occur. But nonetheless, Nasser Hospital is once again being used by Hamas in addition to treating the sick and wounded.
As you explained that, Ken, I found the latest from Israel Defense Forces on this Monday morning via X. They say, quote, a key Hamas terrorist who was operating from within the Nasser Hospital compound in Gaza was precisely struck. The strike was conducted following an extensive intelligence gathering process and with precise munitions in order to mitigate harm to the surrounding environment as much as possible. They conclude their statement by saying, Hamas exploits civilian infrastructure while brutally endangering the Gazan population, cynically using an active hospital as a shelter for planning and executing murderous terrorist attacks in a direct violation of international law. Again, Ken, that's the latest from Israel Defense Forces. People feeling this morning at one point, Hamas was kind of secretive about being in plain sight. You know, they would use that tunnel network you shared with us from the beginning of this conflict. But now just to be in the midst of civilian life in the hospital receiving treatment. Concerns this morning from the innocent Palestinian people who have lost loved ones because of Hamas. Where do they go from here?
Yeah. Throughout this conflict, Hamas has been using the Palestinian people as a shield. They actively move around to try to hide within the non-Hamas Palestinian camps. They are trying to use that to stop the IDF from hitting where they are at, because in the process they will cause civilian casualties. But they've effectively used the Palestinian people as a shield against activities from both the air and by ground forces there in the Gaza Strip. So Hamas has not been playing fair, but this is an asymmetrical war. And in asymmetrical war, you have to use all advantages you can. And so Hamas is using the Palestinian people as a tool, a weapon against the IDF.
Questions this morning, Ken, surrounding what does this mean for a potential ceasefire in the coming days or months? What does this mean about the remaining hostages still in Hamas captivity? We've seen those protests across Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, Israel, this time last week. People protesting right outside of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home, demanding that the Israeli government do more to get that ceasefire so the remaining hostages can come home.
Yeah. So there are two factions there in Israel. There is a faction that wants to make whatever concessions they can to Hamas to get the remaining hostages out of the Gaza Strip. And then there are those who agree with Netanyahu and wants to the priority being to rid the area of Hamas. The first phase of the agreement is over. We were supposed to see negotiations in the second phase to continue getting out both bodies and live hostages out, and further agreements about changes to the Gaza Strip, the IDF's position in the Gaza Strip. But the fact that Hamas has not released the hostages, the fact that an ultimatum was placed and a line was drawn by President Trump, telling Netanyahu that they should do whatever is necessary if they do not release the remaining hostages within 2 weeks. That 2 weeks has passed. Israel has once again resumed military operations there in the Gaza Strip. Now, the thing is that a lot of the IDF forces, which are not full-time soldiers, they had been activated for this fight. Many of them have gone back to their jobs. And so the IDF is down as far as manpower goes, but they may have to recall those members back to active duty once again if they are going to restart the conflict all across the Gaza Strip.
And for those families of Hamas hostages that have been holding on to hope since the very beginning of this conflict, for some of them that hope is waning, understandably so, as the conflict doesn't seem far from over. And as I say that, we are getting literally another breaking news alert into our live now from Fox Studio, sharing this with you and the viewers as I'm getting this in. We're learning this is a live look out in Israel. Israeli police and paramedics at the scene of where a ramming and shooting attack just took place. You're seeing those officials there along with a vehicle. Looks like it's being inspected. Ken, no word if this is in response or retaliation to that hospital attack that just happened, but we've seen this plenty of times throughout this conflict. Terroristic acts. We saw a bus that exploded out in the city center. Now learning of this. Is this pretty much the back and forth we will continue to see until world leaders step up to provide some type of resolution?
So we have seen this type of attack over the years continuously throughout the conflict and before. Is that vehicles can be turned into weapons. You can either have a vehicle, you can steal a vehicle, you can commandeer a vehicle and drive it into a crowded area. You had mentioned buses. Hamas had attempted an attack. They had placed bombs on 5 different buses and had those something happened with the timers to where instead of blowing up out in the public with people on board the buses, instead the buses burned without any Israelis on board those buses. So that was an averted terrorist attack that would have been very, very consequential had it occurred, buses full of people. But we have seen this type of attack, of ramming attack, over the years. So it just shows that terrorism continues on even when you have IDF active in the Gaza Strip. This kind of attack continues to happen.
Yeah, you raise a great point. You know, terrorism will continue to happen. They are in place to try to prevent and respond to these terroristic acts. But I know you always say no one has a crystal ball when they can predict when these things will happen. But it's important that they remain vigilant because they know it can and will happen. So there needs to be that heightened security alert, as you've mentioned, to keep people safe.
You know, absolutely. And the other thing is that the Israeli intelligence service, Shin Bet, often is able to have information that will stop some of these attacks from occurring. And Shin Bet also was part of the surgical attacks within the Gaza Strip here yesterday, identifying where those commanders were, the deputy commander and the commander of different battalions. That type of intelligence is very useful for identifying individuals that are about to carry out attacks, or in the case of in the Gaza Strip, where the political leadership was or the military leadership was, so as to get the most bang for the buck by IDF.
Ken Gray, always a pleasure to have you join us on the show. We were discussing one breaking news alert and then another one came in, but I think it further added to what you were saying off the top of the interview that we are going to continue to see these things happen in real time at a moment's notice as the ceasefire is now stalled. Thank you so much for your dialogue and expertise on all things Middle East conflict. Have a great and safe rest of your day.
Thank you.